I am back. Stream crashed. We are back. I am here. Hello. How are you? How is everybody? How are you doing? I believe my screen. Actually, no, I can't believe that. Every single time that I launch OBS, try to stream, I have to undo it and then redo it again. I don't know what it is, but it hates me. It is okay. Stop. Okay. Here we are. We are together. We are here to read. Read a book. Read a book. It is the second series. Or second book in the Vampire Kisses series. So get comfortable. Get hydrated. And let's begin, I guess. Or possibly my stream crashes again. We are reading Vampire Kisses, Book 2, Kissing Coffins. Here's to new blood. Jacker Maxwell. What the first page says. We're reading chapter 1. On chapter 1 of Kissing Coffins. Chapter 1. Bleeding Heart. It was like a final nail in a coffin. Becky and I were camped out in a darkened bedroom, engrossed in the 80s cult horror classic Kissing Coffins. Femme Fatale Jenny, a teenage, malnourished blonde wearing a size -2 white cotton dress, was desperately running up a serpentine rock footpath toward an isolated haunted mansion. Bright veins of lightning shot overhead in the pouring rain. Only the night before had Jenny unearthed the true identity of her fiancé, when she stumbled upon his hidden dungeon and found him climbing out of a coffin. Dashing Vladimir Livingston, a renowned English professor, was not a mere mortal after all, but an immortal blood-sucking vampire. Upon hearing Jenny's blood-curdling screams, Professor Livingston immediately covered his fangs with his black cape. Red eyes remained unconcealed, gazing back at her longingly. "Cannot bear witness to me in this state," I said, along with the vampire. Jenny didn't flee. Instead, she reached out toward her fiancé. Her vampire love growled, reluctantly stepped back into the shadows and disappeared. The Fang Flick had gathered a goth cult following that continued today. Audience members flocked to retro cinemas in full costume, shouted the lines of the movie in unison, and acted out the various roles in front of the screen. Kind of like Rocky Horror. Although I'd seen the movie a dozen times at home on DVD and knew all the words, I've never been blessed with participating in a theatrical showing. This was Becky's first time watching it. We sat in my room, glued to the screen, as Ginny decided to return to the professor's mansion and confront her mortal lover. Becky dug her gnawed on blood-red painted fingernails into my arm as Ginny slowly opened the creaky wooden arch-shaped dungeon door. The ingenuine softly crept down the massive winding staircase into Vladimir's darkened basement, torches and cobwebs hanging on the cement brick walls. A simple black coffin sat in the center of the room, earth sprinkled beneath it. She approached it cautiously. With all her might, Ginny lifted the heavy coffin lid. Violins screeched to a climax. Ginny peered inside. The coffin was empty. Becky gasped. "He's gone." Tears began to well in my eyes. It was like watching myself on screen. My own love, Alexander Sterling, had vanished into the night 2 evenings ago, shortly after I had discovered he too was a vampire. Ginny leaned over the empty casket and melodramatically wept as only a B-movie actress could. A tear threatened to fall from my eye. I wiped it off with the back of my hand before Becky could see. I pressed the stop button on the remote and the screen went black. "Why did you turn it off?" Becky asked. Her disgruntled face was barely illuminated by the few votives I had scattered around my room. A tear rolling down her cheek caught the reflection of one of the candles. "It was just getting to the good part." "I've seen this 100 times," I said, rising and ejected the DVD. "But I haven't," she whined. "What happens next?" "You can finish it next time," I reassured her as I put the DVD away in my closet. "Matt were a vampire," Becky pondered, referring to her khaki-clad new boyfriend. "I'd let him take a bite out of me any time." I felt challenged by her innocent remark, but I bit my tongue. I couldn't share my most secretest of secrets, even with my best friend. "Really? You don't know what you'd do," was all I could say. "I'd let him bite me," she replied, matter-of-factly. "It's getting late," I said, turning on the light. I hadn't slept the last 2 nights since Alexander left. My eyes were blacker than the eyeshadow I put on them. "Yeah, I have to call Matt before 9, I said, glancing at my Nightmare Before Christmas alarm clock. "Would you and Alexander meet us for a movie tomorrow?" she asked, grabbing her jean jacket from the back of my computer chair. We can't," I stalled, blowing out the votives. "Maybe next week." "Next week? But I haven't even seen him since the party." "I told you, Alexander's studying for exams." "Well, I'm sure he'll ace them," she said. "He's been cracking the books all day and night." Of course I couldn't tell anyone, even Becky, why Alexander had disappeared. I wasn't even sure of the reason myself. But mostly, I couldn't admit to myself that he had gone. I was in denial. Gone. The word turned my stomach and choked my throat. Just the thought of explaining to my parents that Alexander had left Dolesville brought tears to my eyes. I couldn't bear accepting the truth, much less telling it. I didn't want another rumor mill circulating throughout Dolesville. Word got out that Alexander had moved without warning. Who knows what conclusions the gossip mongers would jump to. At this point, I wanted to maintain the status quo, keep up appearances until the RBI, Raven Bureau of Investigation, had a few more days to figure out a plan. "We'll double date soon," I promised as I walked Becky outside to her truck. "I'm dying to know," she said, climbing into her pickup truck. "What happens to Ginny?" She tries to find Vladimir." Becky closed her door, rolled down the window. "If I discovered Matt was a vampire, and then he disappeared, I'd search for him," she said confidently. "I know you'd do the same for Alexander." She started the engine and backed out of the driveway. My best friend's remark was like a package of pop rocks blasting off in my brain. "Okay, we're gonna take a break while the ads are about to roll. And welcome in, first-time chatter. Thank you, Hawkins. Thank you." I don't reply to chat until either a break or in between chapters. Unfortunately, you are in an ad. I will wait. I will hold off. I will wait for you to come back. Like 3-minute ads for 68 minutes of no ads. You're not not first, technically. When Hawkins was first. They put a tea emote. Put a tea emote. But we are gonna wait on the ads. We only have 2 minutes left. Do you like the new mic filters for ASMR? You like them? They sound fine. I am testing them, not being super loud. Sultry. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Not this type of stream. Good. Good. So it does sound good? That's good. Happy to hear. Thank you for following. Welcome to the den. Only 1 more minute of ads. Then we will continue. I'd like to wait for anyone who is not subscribed. Then we're going to have 60 minutes of uninterrupted reading. Yay! Uninterrupted. We are reading Vampire Kisses 2, Kissing Coffins. It is the 2nd book of the Vampire Kisses series. One of my favorite series from middle school. Yes. I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, it's really good. It's a really good series. Honestly, I relate to it a lot. And we are back. Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome to the community. Hope the ads weren't too terrible. But now you have 60 minutes of uninterrupted reading. Let's get back to it. We just got done talking to Becky, and she drove off in her truck, and it gave us an idea about us finding Alexander, our vampire boyfriend. My best friend's remark was like a package of pop rocks blasting off in my brain. Why hadn't I thought of it sooner? I spent the last several days worrying how long I'd have to keep making excuses for Alexander's absence. Now I wouldn't be forced to wait an eternity in Dullsville, wondering if he'd ever return. I didn't have to jump every time the telephone rang to find out if it was for my mother. I waved to Becky as she drove down the street. You're right, I said to myself. I have to find him. I'm going to Alexander's. I won't be long, I called to my mother as she sat devouring a J. Jill catalog in the living room. I had a jolt of electricity coursing through my veins. It had been stagnant since my goth guide departed. I grabbed my coat and ran back to the mansion to find any clues of Alexander's whereabouts. I didn't let my true love disappear without a full report from the RBI. Nancy Drew dipped in black. Although becoming a vampire had always been a dream of mine, when faced with it, I didn't know what I'd do. Alexander already did what all great vampires do. He transformed me. I craved his presence every minute I was awake. I thirsted for his smile and hungered for his touch. But did I need to literally transform into a diva of darkness? With my vampire boyfriend? Did I want to spend my life in greater isolation than I already did as an outcast goth? However, I had to let him know that I loved him no matter who or what he was. I had spent a lifetime as a nocturnal loving, rebellious, black-on-black wearing outcast in the pearly white, cliquey conservative town of Dullsville. I was relentlessly teased and bullied by soccer snob Trevor Mitchell. I was stared at like a circus freak by Dolesvillians, classmates, and teachers. The only friend I'd ever had was Becky, but we never shared the same taste in music or fashion, and our personalities were polar opposite. When Alexander Sterling moved to the mansion on Benson Hill for the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't alone. I was drawn to him before I even met him, seeing him standing in the darkened roadway, Becky's headlights illuminating his fair skin and his sexy features, took my breath away. Then when he caught me sneaking into the mansion, and I got a glimpse of him again, I had a feeling I'd never known before. I knew I had to be with him. Not only was he a pale-skinned, combat boot-wearing goth like me, but as we began dating, I found out we listened to the same music: The Cure, Good Charlotte, Evanescence. More important than tastes, we shared the same desires and dreams. Alexander understood loneliness, isolation, and being different. He knew firsthand what it was like to be judged for what he wore, how he looked, for being homeschooled, and expressing himself through a paintbrush instead of a soccer ball. When I was with him, I felt like I finally belonged. I wasn't judged, bullied, or teased for what I wore, but was accepted, and even celebrated for who I was inside. With Alexander gone and his whereabouts unknown, I felt lonelier than I had before I met him. I removed the brick that held the broken window open and crept inside the mansion's basement. Full moon illuminated mirrors covered with white rumpled sheets, carelessly stacked cardboard boxes, and coffin-shaped coffee table. My heart sank when I saw again that the earth-filled crates were gone. The last time I had searched the mansion uninvited, I had hoped to make chilling discoveries. I unearthed crates stamped by Romanian customs and marked soil. Found an ancient family tree including Alexander's name, with no dates of births or deaths. Now I was apprehensive about what I wouldn't find. Upstairs, the portraits that once lined the walls were gone. I followed the hallway to the kitchen, where I opened the refrigerator. Only leftovers remained: antique china dishes, pewter goblets still lined the cabinets. I spotted an unlit candle and a box of matches on the black granite countertop. I wandered the empty halls by candlelight. The wooden floorboards creaked beneath my feet as if the lonely mansion were crying. In the living room, the moonlight shone through the cracks in the red velvet drapes. Furniture was once again covered with white sheets. Disheartened, I headed for the grand staircase. Instead of the music of the Smiths pulsing from upstairs, all I heard was the window blowing against the shutters. The ghoulish mansion no longer sent waves of excitement through my veins, only lonely chills. I ascended the stairs and crept into the study where I'd once been greeted by my knight, holding fresh picked daisies. Now it was just another abandoned library, books collecting dust, empty of readers. The butler's bedroom was even more Spartan, with a single perfectly made bed, Jameson's closet cleared of clothes, cloaks, and shoes. Master bedroom was furnished with a canopy bed with black lace that dripped around its Gothic columns. Stared at the mirrorless vanity directly across. The little combs, brushes, and nail polishes in shades of black, gray, and brown that had belonged to his mother were gone. I never even had the opportunity to meet Alexander's parents. I wasn't sure if they even existed. Tormented, I paused at the bottom of the attic steps. I wondered how Alexander felt leaving so suddenly, after finally being accepted by so many Dolesvillians. Climbed the narrow attic stairway and blew out the dripping candle. I entered his abandoned bedroom, which only 2 nights ago he had invited me into. A twin-sized mattress rested on the floor unmade, typical for any teenager, vampire or not. The easel in the corner was bare. I gazed at the paint splattered on the floor. All his artwork was gone. Even the painting he had made for me, a portrait of me dressed for the snowball, holding a pumpkin basket and a Snickers, sporting a spider ring and fake vampire teeth. Black letter-sized envelope lay on top of a blood-red paint can, sitting underneath the easel. I held the piece of mail up to the moonlight. It was addressed to Alexander and had a Romanian stamp. There was no return address, and the postmark was illegible. The envelope had ripped open. Curiosity getting the best of me, I reached my fingers inside and pulled out a red letter in black ink. It read, "Alexander, he is on his way." Fortunately, the rest of the letter had been torn off. Didn't know who it was from or what it meant. I wonder what vital information it held. Maybe a top secret location. It was like watching a movie and not seeing the ending. And who was he? I walked to the window and stared up at the moon, the very window where his grandmother's ghost was rumored to have been seen. Felt a kinship with the Baroness. She had lost the love of her life and was left to keep his secret in isolation. I wonder if that would be my fate as well. Where was Alexander headed? Back to Romania? I'd buy a ticket to Europe if I had to. I'd walk mansion door to door to find him. I wondered if Alexander had stayed, what would have happened to him. If the town found out his identity, he could have been persecuted, taken away for scientific research, or paraded around as the top act in a sideshow. I imagine what would become of me. I might be interrogated by the FBI, hounded by tabloids, or forced to live in isolation forever, known as vampire culture. I turned to leave his room when I saw a small booklet poking out from underneath his mattress. I took it to the attic window for closer inspection. Had Alexander forgotten his passport? There was an empty spot where his photo had been torn out. I touched the space, wondering what picture a vampire could have taken. I flipped through the pages, stamps from England, Ireland, Italy, France, and the United States. If I had Alexander's passport in my hand, he couldn't have gone back to Romania. No one can travel out of the country without a passport. Now I have one thing I didn't have before: hope. Slow down, my mom said when I burst through the kitchen door. You're tracking mud all over the floor. I'll clean it later, I said hurriedly. I'd like to invite Alexander over for dinner this week, she offered, catching up to me. You haven't seen him since the party. You've been keeping him all to yourself. Sure, I mumbled. We'll talk later. I'm going to study. Study? You've been studying since the party. Alexander has had a positive effect on you, she said. If my mother only knew. I had been holed up in my room waiting for emails, calls, and letters that never arrived. Billy Boy and my dad were watching a baseball game in the den. When's Alexander coming over? Billy asked when I passed by. What could I tell him? Maybe never? Quickly settled for, not for a while. I don't want to overexpose him to suburbia. He might want to start playing golf. I think you found yourself a keeper, my dad complimented. Thanks, Dad, I said, stopping for a moment, thinking of the family picnics, holidays, and vacations Alexander and I wouldn't be able to share. Please don't disturb me, I ordered, heading toward my bat cave. Could she actually be doing homework? Billy Boy asked my dad, surprised. Doing a report, I called back, on vampires. I'm sure you'll get an A, my dad replied. I locked myself in my bedroom and feverishly searched the internet for any info on vampire hangouts where Alexander might be. New Orleans? New York? 6 months sans sunlight on the North Pole? Would a vampire want to hide among the mortal population or isolate himself with his own kind? Frustrated, I lay on my bed, boots still on, and stared at the bookshelves of Bram Stoker's novels, movie posters of The Lost Boys and Dracula 2000, my dresser top adorned with Hello Batty figures, but nothing gave me insight into where he might have gone. I reached over to switch off my Edward Scissorhands lamp when I noticed on my nightstand the object that had gotten me into this mess. Ruby's compact. Why hadn't I thought of her sooner? At the party, Jameson had asked her out for a date. No one stands up Ruby, not even the undead. Hello. Hello. I read your comments at in between chapters. So that was the end of chapter 1. Coffins. Second book of the Vampire Kisses series. So I will catch up with chat now. Hello, Gaisu. Welcome in. Hello, Unnight Night 2. Welcome in. Icarus Flies, thank you, thank you. I'm glad you like it. This is my ASMR book reading. Glad you like it. Spamming likes until your fingers get tired. That is so cute. That is adorable. But thank you, thank you. Very much appreciated. I hope you're enjoying reading. I do. I really do hope you enjoy it. How are you guys today? Are you guys doing good? Good. It's good to hear. I'm glad you're enjoying it. You're sleepy? Well, then go to sleep. You don't have to scare if you're getting sleepy. Reading you to sleep, I guess. The music probably also doesn't help. I might fall asleep to it though, since I'm like half asleep right now. Well, this is like the perfect stream for it, to fall asleep. I guess that's the whole point of ASMR, right? Fall asleep. Well, we can continue. I can read you guys to sleep. It's like reading a story time, a bedtime story for you. A little bedtime story for you guys. We're on chapter 2 of Kissing Coffins. Chapter 2, Flower Power. The following morning, I ran full throttle to Armstrong Travel, arriving before the agency opened. I heard keys rattling and heels clicking behind me. It was Janice Armstrong, the owner. "Where's Ruby?" I asked breathlessly. "She doesn't come in on Tuesdays until the afternoon," she answered, opening the door. "The afternoon?" I groaned. "By the way," she said, moving close, "do you know anything about Alexander's butler?" "Creepy man?" I asked. "I mean Jameson?" "They were supposed to have a date," she confessed, switching on the office lights and adjusting the thermostat. "How was it?" I asked naively. Janice put her purse in her top drawer, turned on her computer, and looked at me. "Don't you already know? He didn't show," said. And with a stunner like Ruby, he was lucky she even looked in his direction. "Did he say why he canceled?" I pressed. "No, I thought Alexander would have told you," she said. "Not directly." She shook her head. "Good man is hard to find, you know, but you have Alexander." I bit my black lip. "Hey, aren't you late for school?" she inquired, looking up at Armstrong travel clock. "I'm always late, Janice. Can you give me Ruby's address?" "Why don't you stop back at the end of the day?" "It's just that she left her compact. You can leave it here," Janice suggested. The front door opened and in walked Ruby. I imagined a jaded woman in jeans holding a cigarette and a beer, but even being jilted, Ruby was in style. She was wearing full makeup and a white sweater and matching tight white slacks. "You're in early today," Janice said. "I have a lot to catch up on," Ruby replied with a sigh. "What are you doing here?" she asked, surprised to see me. "I have something of yours." "If you are here on behalf of Jameson, you can tell him I'm sorry I had to cancel." "You?" "But he was," I began. Ruby settled in at her desk and turned on her computer, accidentally knocking over her cup of pens. "Darn it," she exclaimed, agitated, trying to grab the pens as they fell to the floor. Janice and I raced over to help her pick them up. "This has never happened before," Ruby said angrily. "Now everyone will know." "I knock things over all the time," I comforted. "No, she means about Jameson," Janice whispered to me. "I got stood up several times before I met my Joe, but I must admit, I'm surprised about the butler. It was doubly rude since we came to the party to support the Sterling family." Janice glared at me as if Jameson's no-show was my fault. I feel as though he stood me up too. "Not the biggest deal," Ruby said. "Anyway, he's more, shall I say, eccentric than I am." "He's a fool," Janice said. "This really surprises me. He was such a gentleman," Ruby lamented. "And that accent, I guess that's why I was taken by him." "He likes you too," I said, only both women looked at me as if I were going to reveal national secrets. "Only what?" Janice asked. "Only that he should have called." "You're darn right. I hope you haven't told anyone about this," Ruby said worriedly. In a small town like this, being stood up could ruin my reputation. You must know something, Raven, Janice cried. Yes, did Alexander allude to anything? Ruby asked. I had to console my former boss. After all, I was the one who asked Jameson to abandon their date. I couldn't let Ruby take it personally. Just that the reason he canceled had nothing to do with you, I said evasively. I bet he has a girlfriend, Ruby speculated. I read in Cosmo. Of course he doesn't, I exclaimed with a laugh. But I need to know something as well. Did Jameson have a trip planned? Do you know something I don't? Did he buy an airline tickets or come in asking for any road maps? I hinted. What aren't you telling us? Ruby and Janice stared at me hard. I wasn't about to tell them the truth that Alexander didn't reflect in her compact. Ruby's compact, I almost forgot. I began to pull it out from my purse when a man dressed in chinos and red polo shirt entered the office with a grand bouquet. Distracted, I replaced the compact and zipped up my purse. Ruby White? He asked. I'm Ruby, she said, her hand waving in the air like she just won the coverall at bingo. He handed Ruby a bouquet of white roses. She blushed as she took the flowers. Flowers for Ruby. They could have been sent from any number of Dillsvillian suitors. What does the card say? Janice asked eagerly. Wonder if they're from Kyle, the golf pro. I'm sorry. These had to greet you instead of me, Ruby read. She looked up in astonishment. Fondly, Jameson. Jameson? I asked, suddenly wide-eyed. How sweet, Janice said, filling a glass vase from the water cooler. I told you all along he was wonderful. Can you believe this? Ruby wondered aloud, holding the bouquet close. What else does it say? I asked. Isn't that enough? Janice said, inhaling the scent, placing the flowers in the vase. They're beautiful. No info on where the order was placed from? I inquired. Ruby shook her head, distracted. There has to be, I mumbled. I looked out the window and saw the delivery man stepping into a white van with the words Flower Power spelled out in daisies. I raced out the door as the van began to drive off. Wait, I called, running hard in my combat boots. You forgot something. But it was too late. The van sped around the corner. Breathless and frustrated, I retreated back to the travel agency. I began to open the door when I noticed a piece of paper lying on the sidewalk. It was a flower-powered delivery order. It must have fallen out of the van. I quickly grabbed it, scanning the document for any vital info. The travel agency address was fully disclosed, but the sender's address was blank. No name, no email, nothing. Then hidden in the right-hand corner, I noticed a 10-digit number. Can I use your phone, Ruby? I asked, running inside. It'll only be a minute. Of course, she said, arranging the roses. At that moment, I could have called Africa and she wouldn't have cared. Area code seemed oddly familiar. I racked my brain. It belonged to a town a couple hundred miles away where my Aunt Libby lived. I dialed. Would Alexander's voice greet me? Ring or creepy man's ring? Or would it be a dead end? Ring. Thank you for calling the Coffin Club, a zombie-like voice finally answered. Our business hours are nightly from sunset to sunrise. Leave a message if you dare. I let the phone slip from my hand. Ruby was still arranging her flowers. Good goth, I whispered. The Coffin Club? Hello, Racco. Welcome in, welcome in. Oh, did my message delete when my stream crashed? Yeah, my tits is off during ASMR. Hello. Hello, hello. Yeah. My throwables are turned off during ASMR. As to not disturb. 3. Thank you for the lurk. I'm happy you're here. Thank you, Racco. Void is disappearing and reappearing like a void. Exactly. That's what he's meant to do. Comes in, greets people, comes in when raids happen, when subs happen, then goes back into the void. Very, very sweet little pet. really happy that you guys are enjoying my ASMR reading. They've been really great. Love reading books. Books is one of my favorite things to do. So, thank you for enjoying it with me. Great. Let's continue on. Chapter 3. We're on chapter 3 of Hissing Coffins. Final departure. At school, I now experienced a newfound popularity. It wasn't as if I were a celebrity. My schoolmates who had never even looked my way before called, "What's up, Raven?" But besides a hello wave, nothing had changed. No one except Matt and Becky invited me to eat lunch, offered me a ride home, or asked me to join their study group. Not one classmate secretly passed me a note or bothered to share his pack of gum. Thankfully, I was too distracted to appreciate any rise in status and spent a morbidly long afternoon in front of the library computer searching the internet for the Coffin Club. I want to visit Aunt Libby, I told my parents that night at dinner. Aunt Libby? My dad asked. We haven't seen her in ages. I know, and it's about time. Spring break starts Wednesday. I'd like to leave tomorrow afternoon. Can't imagine you want to be away from Alexander for a minute, much less a few days, my mom said. Of course I'll die being away from Alexander, I exclaimed, rolling my eyes. I could feel my family staring at me, waiting for my next response. But he's going to be tied up with his homeschooling exam, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to see Aunt Libby. My parents looked at each other. Are you sure you're not going there to see a Wicked Wicca's concert? Dad, they broke up 5 years ago. Well, Libby's not a very good role model, my dad remarked, and who knows what neurotic guy she's involved with this time. Dad, she's more like you than you think. You just don't drive a hippie mobile anymore. I remember visiting my aunt when I was a teenager, my mom said. She took me to see hair. See, I need these memorable teen experiences to shape my life. Libby gets such a kick out of Raven, she admitted. It'd be good for her as well. All right, Dad said reluctantly. I'll call her tonight, but if she's still practicing voodoo, you're not going. After dinner, I met Becky by the swings at Evans Park. I had to talk to you pronto, I began. Me too. Life is so good. Can you believe we both have boyfriends? Even if Alexander weren't a vampire, the idea of us having boyfriends was still unreal. We'd both been social outcasts for so many years, it was incomprehensible to be accepted by anyone but each other. I need you to come on a little trip with me, I told her. Trip? I'm going to visit my Aunt Libby, and I need you to come, I exclaimed excitedly. This weekend? I'll have to ask. No, I'm leaving tomorrow afternoon. Matt asked me to watch his soccer game after school. You just started seeing him, I argued. I thought you'd be happy for me. Besides, I was going to ask you to come. The thought of watching a soccer game made me want to hurl, but Becky's glow made me realize I was being selfish. I am happy for you, but can't you go another time? She begged. We have all spring break to hang out with Matt and Alexander. There was no point arguing. Becky was going to watch Matt's game tomorrow, just as I was going to search for Alexander. No amount of pleading would make us change our minds. Now that Matt had abandoned his best friend, my nemesis Trevor, the thorn in my side since kindergarten, we would hang out with Becky all the time. And I was jealous of Becky for having a boyfriend who hadn't disappeared into the night. Why is this trip so important? She asked. It's top secret. What's top secret? Matt inquired, appearing behind us. What are you doing here? I asked, startled. This is a private meeting. Becky and I are going to Ace's Arcade. She told me to meet her here. It was bad enough I was losing Alexander to the underworld, but when I needed my best friend the most, I was losing her to 3D pinball. I gotta go, I said, turning away. So what was your top secret news? Matt asked. It'll be great to hear something other than Trevor's bogus stories for once. I stared at the happy couple, Cupid's newest bullseye. Trevor is right, the Sterlings really are vampires, I said impulsively. They stared at me like I was crazy, then they burst into laughter. I too laughed and then walked away. I packed my suitcase full of black garments, unsure of what I was preparing for. To be safe, I also packed a clove of garlic in Tupperware, Ruby's compact, and a can of mace. To calm my nerves, I opened my Olivia Outcast journal and made a list of positives of dating a vampire. He'll be around for eternity was number 1. Number 2, he can always fly for free. Number 3, I'll save hundreds of dollars on wedding photos. Number 4, no mirrors to Windex. Number 5, he'll never have garlic breath. I closed my journal. I had one more thing to pack. I opened the door to my brother's room. Billy was tapping his skinny fingers on his computer keyboard. What do you want? He snapped when I peeked in. Want? It's not what I want, but rather what I have to give. I picked this up after school from Software City. They said it was the latest. I showed him Wrestling Maniacs 3. Did you steal it? Of course not. I may be weird, but I'm not a thief. I reached for the game, but I held it firm. I just need one thing in return. He rolled his eyes. I knew it. It's just teensy-weensy answers to a test, he guessed. Not this time. Need a paper written? Not yet. Then what? I need a fake ID, I whispered. Aunt Libby's not going to take you to a bar. Of course she's not. But it's really for identification since I won't have my driver's license for a few months. Use your school ID then. I need to be 18, I started to shout. Then I took a deep breath. There's a library convention and I need to be 18 to check out books. Whatever. Mom and Dad will kill you. You're too young to drink. I'm not going to drink. I just want to hang out. What would Alexander say if he found out that you were going to cruising without him? I'm hoping to meet him there, I whispered. I knew it. You couldn't care less about my favorite Aunt Libby, he said in a girly voice. Pretty please? I asked, dangling the game before his computer's strained eyes. Well, you'll make it? No, but I know someone who will. The first time ever, I walked my brother to school, Dolesville Middle. Red brick building, front lawn, and playground looked surprisingly smaller than when I had attended several years ago. I used to skip class and hide out over there, I said, pointing to a small athletics equipment shed. I know, he said. Raven was here, scratched all over the side. I guess I skipped more than I thought, I said with a grin. I felt like a towering gothic giant as I walked up the front lawn among girls sporting Bratz t-shirts and strawberry shortcake notebooks and boys with overstuffed Pokemon backpacks. I figured we were meeting a corrupt shop teacher, but instead we were greeted at the entrance by an 11-year-old, red-haired wonderkind named Henry. What do you need to make fake IDs for? I asked him, getting into Chuck E. Cheese's after hours. Billy Boy's friend gazed up at me like he'd never seen a real girl up close. You can stare at my picture after you take it, I joked. Follow me, he said. In the hallway, we were stopped by Miss Hanley, my 6th grade math teacher. Raven Madison, you look so grown up. I could tell she had expected me to wind up in juvie hall or shipped off to a boarding school. Stared at my brother and me, obviously wondering how two such different human beings could come from the same shared DNA. I never realized Billy was your brother, she confessed. I know, I whispered. I'm amazed too. Well, some things haven't changed, she said, walking off. I kept looking back as if she had seen an apparition. I know who would be the subject of today's talk around the microwave in the teacher's lounge. Stopped at Henry's locker, the only one with a combination lock that was hooked up to a garage door opener. Henry flipped the control switch and the combo lock sprung open. Computer games, electronics, and programming manuals were organized in racks like a miniature computer store. Pulled out a digital camera hidden underneath a shelf. Let's go. I followed them around the corner to the computer room, but it was locked. Heart sank. Can't happen. Break a window if you have to, I said half-jokingly. Both geeky preteens looked at me as if I were the odd one. Henry dug into the back pocket of his chinos and pulled out a worn brown leather wallet. He opened it and got out a credit card. Slid the card into the door, jiggled it a little, and within a moment the door slipped open. I like your style, I said with a smile. 20 minutes later, I was staring at an 18-year-old Raven. I look good for my age, I said with a wink, and headed home. Oh, you refunded his points. That's so sweet. Thank you. I still don't know how to do that. Don't know much about my own dashboard. Really bad. Are about to hit ads, so I guess it's a good thing that we are done with chapter 3. So, we can just wait for the ad to get over. Oh no, we've been... been hit back. Daydream, he's actually in here. He's not in here. That only works if we're collabing. Here. I don't think that's how that works. He can't Ara if he's not in here. That doesn't even give him the option. Why did you do that? Seriously. You're not even in here collabing or anything. Lord have mercy. You're not collabing. That makes no sense. Yeah, he redeemed it, but you're not in here. You're not in here to even have the option of whether you're gonna Ara or gift a sub. Like, that makes no sense. Wanna do? I ain't gonna complain. Logic makes no sense. I thought it was more so a choice whenever you're here. Just whenever you're in chat, that makes no. But, you know, you do you, bro. Whatever logic you're coming up with, I guess. That's your logic. Whatever. Strange people. Okay. Seems we are out of ads. I will continue. The book. We're continuing. Chapter 4. Kissing Coffins, Vampire Kisses. Chapter 2. Chapter 4. Hipsterville. Mom, I'm not going to Siberia. I'll be back in 2 days. You're sitting at Dolesville Greyhound bus stop outside Shirley's ice cream parlor. She was trying to strangle me with kisses when the bus squealed to the curb in front of a few other young Dulesvillians heading out early for spring break. As the bus pulled away, I waved goodbye from my window seat in the back. I actually felt a pang in my stomach. This would be my first trip away from Dulesville on my own. I even wondered if I would return. I sat back, closed my eyes, and thought what it would be like if I became Alexander's vampiress. I imagined Alexander waiting for me at Hipsterville's bus stop, standing in the rain, wearing tight black jeans and a glow-in-the-dark Jack Skellington shirt. A small bouquet of black roses in one hand. Upon seeing me, pale face would flush with just enough pink to make him look alive. Take my hand in his, lean into me, and kiss me long. He'd whisk me off in his restored vintage hearse, adorned with painted spiders and cobwebs, the music of Slipknot blasting from the speakers. Park in front of an abandoned castle and climb the creaky spiral staircase that led to the desolate tower. The ancient castle walls would be lined with black lace and the rustic wooden floor sprinkled with rose petals. A million candles would flicker around the room, any medieval windows barely letting in moonlight. I wouldn't be without you anymore. I couldn't be without you anymore, Alexander would say. He would lean into me and take my neck into his mouth. I'd feel a slight pressure on my flesh. I'd become dizzy, no more alive than I'd ever felt. Forward, my head would slump back, my body become limp in his arms. My heart would pulse in overtime as if beating for both of us. Out of the corner of my eye, I'd be able to see Alexander lift his head proudly. Gently let me down. I'd feel lightheaded and stumble to my feet, holding my red-stained neck as blood trickled down my forearm. I'd be able to feel two pointy fangs with the tip of my tongue. He would open a tower window to reveal a sleeping town. I'd be able to see things I'd never seen before, like smiling ghosts floating above the houses. Alexander would take my hand, and we would fly off into the night above the sparkling lights of the town and fairies. The sound of clanging bells interrupted, not the tinkling of bells signaling my arrival into the underworld, but rather a railroad crossing warning of an incoming train, signaling the end of my overactive imagination. The bus was stopped in front of a railroad track. A toddler in the seat across the aisle from me waved excitedly as the black engine approached. "Chugga chugga choo choo," he exclaimed. "I want to be a conductor," he proclaimed to his mother. I too stared at the conductor, waved his blue hat while the train began to pass us. Instead of new boxcars whizzing by us, a string of dilapidated, graffiti-laden freight cars lagged in front of us. Like the toddler across from me, who was likely dreaming of glamorous life of a conductor, too naive to realize the demand of the job, isolation, long hours, and little pay, I too wondered if my dream of becoming a vampire was more romantic than its reality. I was stepping into a world of the unknown, knowing only one thing: I had to find Alexander. The official welcome sign to Aunt Libby's town should read, "Welcome to Hipsterville. Inhabitants must check all goth pants at the city limits." The small town was an eclectic mix of hip coffee shops, upscale secondhand stores, and indie cinemas where all forms of cool people resided: granola heads, artists, goths, and chic freaks. Every kind of acceptable here. I could see why Alexander and Jameson might have escaped to this particular town. It was in close proximity to Dolesville, and they could easily blend in with the smorgasbord of other motley inhabitants. I could only imagine what my life would have been like if I had grown up in a town where I was more accepted than ostracized. I could have been on the A-list to Friday night haunted house parties, been crowned Halloween queen, and received straight A's in historical tombstone class. Dad and Aunt Libby had both been hippies in the 60s, but while Dad morphed into a yuppie, Libby stayed true to her inner deadhead. She had moved to Hipsterville, majored in theater at the university, and now worked as a waitress in a vegan restaurant to support her acting. She was always performing in an avant-garde play or a performance art piece in some director's garage. When I was 11, my family watched her stand on stage for what seemed like days, dressed as a giant snow pea and speaking in broken sentences about how she sprouted. When I arrived in Hipsterville, I wasn't shocked to find that Alexander wasn't waiting for me. But I was surprised my aunt wasn't. I hope she isn't this late for her curtain calls, I thought, as I waited at the bus stop in the hot sun beside my suitcase. Finally, I spotted her beat-up vintage yellow beetle sputtering into the lot. "So grown up," she exclaimed, getting out of her car and giving me a huge hug. "But you dress the same. I was counting on that." Aunt Libby had a youthful face, decorated with sparkling purple eyeshadow and pink lipstick. She wore red, dangly crystal earrings beneath her auburn hair, sky blue halter dress spotted with white beads and beige Nairobi sandals. Her warmth spilled over me. Though we differed in our taste, we immediately bonded like sisters, talking about fashion, music, and movies. "Kissing Coffins?" she asked when I told her what I recently watched. "It's like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I remember going to the midnight show and dancing in the aisles. Let's do the time warp again," Aunt Libby sang, as passerbys gave us strange looks. Kissing Coffins isn't a musical," I interrupted before my aunt got a citation for disturbing the peace. "Isn't that a shame? Well, I've got a great place to take you," she raved, and led me around the block to Hot Gothics. "Wow," I shouted, pointing to a pair of black patent leather boots and torn black mesh sweater. "I've only seen this store on the internet." I was in goth heaven, and it was beautiful. Wicked Wicca's t-shirt, Hello Batty comics, and fake body tattoos. Multi-pierced fuchsia-haired clerk in black shorts over black leggings, 3-inch heeled Mary Janes, and gray mechanic's shirt that said Bob walked over to me. He had the kind of style that in Dolesville could be seen only on satellite TV. And instead of my usual retail experience of either being ignored or seen as a potential thief, she greeted me as if I were a movie star at the Beverly Hills boutique. "Can I help you? We have tons of stuff on sale." I eagerly followed her around the store until I was exhausted from rack after rack of gothic clothing. "Feel free to ask if you need anything else," she said. I had my arm stuffed with fishnet stockings, knee-high black boots, and an Olivia Outcast purse. Libby modeled a black t-shirt that read, "Vampires Suck." I felt a pang in my heart and a lump in my throat. "I'll buy it for you," she insisted, taking it to the cash register. Normally, I would have screamed with delight at a shirt like that, but now only reminded me of Alexander was gone. "You don't have to." "Of course I do. I'm your aunt. Well, take this," she said, handing the clerk the shirt and her credit card. I held my gothic goodies. Everything reminded me of Alexander. "I'll just put these back," I said. But then I thought about how sexy I'd look in boots and black fishnets if I found them again. "We'll get these too," my aunt said, seeing through me, and handed the clerk my merchandise. Aunt Livy lived on a tiny tree-lined urban street with skinny row house apartments from the 1940s. Sharp contrast to my contemporary suburban house and neighborhood in Dolesville. Her one-bedroom apartment was small but cozy. The bohemian feel, flowered rugs, pillows, wicker chairs, and lavender potpourri filled the living room. Italian masks decorated the walls, and Chinese lanterns hung from the ceiling. "You can crash here," Aunt Libby said, pointing to a paisley futon couch in the living room. "Thanks," I said, excited about my new digs. "I appreciate you letting me stay." "I'm so happy you came," she replied. I placed my suitcase by the futon and glanced at a Pink Floyd clock hanging above the antique, just for show, fireplace, which she had filled with unlit candles. I had only a few hours until sunset. Libby poured me carrot juice as I unpacked. "You must be hungry," she called from her tiny Art Deco kitchen. "You want an avocado wrap?" "Sure," I said, plopping down at her vintage weathered yellow dinner table with a beaded napkin holder and a wobbly leg. "I bet you have a hot date tonight," I hinted as she stopped my sandwich with sprouts. "But that's okay, I can take care of myself." "Didn't your father tell you?" "I guess he wanted it to be a surprise." "Tell me what?" I asked, envisioning Libby handing me VIP passes to the Coffin Club. "I have a show tonight." "Show?" I didn't travel all the way to Hipsterville to spend 3 hours sitting in a garage. "It's downtown," she said proudly. "We're having a private performance tonight for the town's senior citizens. Now, I'm sorry to say you'll be the only one there without gray hair, but I know you'll love it." She grabbed an envelope hanging on her fridge by a rainbow magnet. She opened the envelope, pulled out a ticket, and presented it to me. "The Village Players present Dracula." Village Players performed in a former elementary school. The actress's dressing room was a classroom that still smelled of erasers, and the large windows were covered with heavy shades. Mirrors replaced the chalkboard. and a long vanity lined with makeup cases, flowers, and congratulation cards sat in place of a teacher's desk. As Aunt Libby applied her makeup and squirmed into her white Victorian dress, I spun a forgotten globe in the corner, letting a black painted fingernail come to rest on Romania. Of course, under any other circumstances, I would have loved to see a performance of Dracula. I would have gone every night, especially to see my aunt as an admittedly old, but I'm sure convincing, Lucy. I would have ordered front row seats. But why would I want to see a fake Dracula when I could see the real thing sipping a Bloody Mary down the street at the Coffin Club? Stage manager called from the hallway. 5 minutes. I hugged Libby and told her to break a leg. Hoped she wouldn't notice my empty seat during the performance. But I couldn't worry about that as I hurried up the aisle to the back of the theater. Pulled aside an elderly usher who looked like he might be one of the undead. Which way is the Coffin Club? Some people spend all their lives searching for their soulmates. I had only an hour and a half to find mine. Are you guys skibbing in the chat? Doing the skibbity, the skib skib. Skib skib skibbity. Oh, bad. You like to skib? Okay. As long as you like to do it, it's fine by me. Reasons I got that. You guys would probably like it. One of my favorites. How are we enjoying the book so far? You guys liking it? This one is actually a shorter book, so I don't think it'll take but 2 streams to get through the second book. It is a short. It has like 105 pages. So it's not that long. Not like the first one. So we'll probably only have 2 streams to get through the second book. You're on chapter 5, Missing Coffins. Chapter 5, The Coffin Club. Have a club named. Love to make a club named that. If I ever owned a club, it would probably be named that. Saying. So cool. Turned the corner to a sight I'd never seen before. More than a dozen young goths waiting in a line. Light-dyed black and white hair, purple floor-length extensions, billowy capes, knee-high black boots, Fisha dresses, lips, cheeks, tongues, foreheads pierced with metal studs and chains, tattoos of baps, barbed wire, and esoteric designs covered their limbs, chests, and backs, and in many cases their entire flesh. Above the line of ghoulish goths, 2 coffins were outlined in red neon on the black brick building. Patience being my virtue, I snuck in front of a girl who was tying up loose corset laces in her medieval gown. Marilyn Manson look-alike standing in front of me turned to face me. You from around here? I don't think any of us are from around here, if you know what I mean, I said, all-knowing. I'm Primus, he responded, extending his hand. Fingernails were longer than mine. I'm Raven, I replied. And I'm Poison, a girl in a tight black and red striped rayon dress snapped, grabbing Primus's hand away. The crowd continued moving forward. Primus and Poison showed their IDs and disappeared inside. Bet you their real names are like Ed and Jamie. Anyways. A bouncer in a Nosferatu t-shirt scrutinized me, blocking the black wooden coffin-shaped door. I held my card proudly, but when the devilish-looking bouncers started studying it, my confidence waned and my heart began to pound. Looks like it was taken yesterday. Well, it wasn't, I said with a sneer. It was taken today. The bouncer cracked a smile and laughed. I haven't seen you here before. Don't you remember me from last time? I was the girl in the black. The bouncer laughed again. He stamped my hand with an image of a bat and wrapped a barbed wire-shaped plastic bracelet around my left wrist. You're alone? He asked. I'm hoping to meet a friend. An older dude, bald with a gray cloak. He was here recently. Have you seen him? The bouncer shrugged. I only remember the girls, he said with a smile. But if he doesn't show, I'm off just before sunrise. He added, letting me pass and opening the coffin door. Stepped through and entered a dark, crowded, smoke-filled, head-banging underworld. I had to pause to let my eyes adjust. Bright ice fog floated over the clubsters like tiny ghosts. Cement walls were spray-painted black with flashing neon headstones. Pale mannequins with huge bat wings hung from the ceiling, some bound in leather, others in Victorian suits or antique dresses. The bathroom doors were shaped like giant tombstones. One read monsters and the other read ghouls. Spiderwebs clung to the bottles behind the bar. A sign underneath a broken clock read, "No garlic." Next to the dance floor, a mini Gothic flea market was set up on folding tables. A vampire clubster could buy anything from fake teeth to body tattoos and tarot card readings. A balcony loomed above the dance floor, accessible by a spiral staircase. Clubsters with blood-filled amulets dangling from their necks and grimacing vampire teeth seemed to be a mix of harmless outcast goths and maybe a few truly deranged. But if I had to bank that there were real vampires in this part of the world, some had to be mixing it up here, where they could walk hidden among the masses. Thrashing music of Nightshade blasted from the speakers. I could feel the stares as I walked by. Instead of the usual glares I was used to enduring, whether walking down the halls of Dolesville High or sauntering past Prada bays, milling about town, I felt self-conscious for a different reason. I was being checked out. Hot goths, gorgeous goths, even geeky goths were eyeing me as if I were a gothic Paris Hilton catwalking down a medieval runway. Even girls sporting shrunken t-shirts that read sin or pretentiously exposed their concave, multi-pierced bellies scrutinized me territorially, as if threatened by any other single female with black eyeshadow and a tight black dress. I fingered my raven-colored hair nervously, trying to be careful whom I make eye contact with. Were they real vampires smelling the scent of a mortal, or just goths looking for a ghoul? I pushed my way to the bar, where a long-haired bartender wearing lipstick and eyeshadow was pouring red liquor into a martini glass. What can I get you? He asked. Blood, beer, or an execution? I like an execution, but make it virgin, I replied, with confidence. I'm driving, or should I say, flying. The grim bartender broke into a smile. Took 2 pewter bottles off the shelf and poured them into an Iron Maiden-shaped glass. That'll be $9. Can I keep the glass? I asked. I sounded like an excited kid at an amusement park instead of an underage teen trying to be cool at a bar. I handed him a 10. Hello. Thank you for following. Welcome to the den. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Handed him a 10. Keep the change, I said proudly, like I'd seen my dad do 1,000 times. I wasn't even sure I was leaving a proper tip. Took a sip of the red slush, which tasted like tomato juice. The bald man wearing a dark cloak here the other night? I asked, shouting over the blaring music. He made a phone call from the club. That guy's here every night. I smiled eagerly. Really? And at least 50 guys just like him, he answered. I turned around. He was right. There was many shaved heads as there were spiked ones. He His creepy-looking eyes. He has creepy-looking eyes and a Romanian accent, I added. Oh, that dude. Yes, pointing to a skinny, bald man with a gray cloak talking to a girl in a Wednesday Addams dress in the corner. Thanks. I quickly pushed my way through the crowd. Jameson, I shouted, tapping him on the shoulder. It's me. He turned around, and instead of actually being a senior citizen, he just looked like one. I fled before he could ask me to bond with him for eternity. I scooted by the Gothic marketplace, not having time to stop and purchase pewter, crystal, or silver amulets, or have my tarot cards read. But when I passed the last booth, a palm reader grabbed my hand. You are looking for love, she said. Single girl in a club looking for love. What were the odds of that? Well, where is he? I challenged, shouting over the blaring music. Closer than you think, she answered mysteriously. I glanced around the packed club. Where? I hollered. The reader said nothing. Slipped a couple of dollars into her palm. Which direction? I asked loudly. She looked into my eyes. East. Bar? You must look in here. And she said, and pointed with her other hand to my heart. I don't need pithy sayings. I need a map, I chided, and continued to make my way through the crowd. I stopped at the DJ booth. Did you see a bald man in here recently? I asked the DJ, who was dressed in white lab coat with fake blood splattered on it. Who? Did you see a bald man here last weekend? I repeated. He shrugged his shoulders. He may have been wearing a gray cloak. Who? The man I'm asking about. The music was so loud, even I couldn't hear myself. Ask Romeo at the bar, he hollered back. I already did, I grumbled. As I returned to the bar, I spotted a dark-haired guy in jeans and a charcoal gray t-shirt leaning against a Corinthian column on the dance floor. Pushed past the clubsters, my heart beating full force. Alexander? But on the closer inspection, I was confronted with a 20-something wearing a Bite Me t-shirt and reeking of alcohol. Frustrated, I headed back to the bar once again. That wasn't him, I said to Romeo. The guy I'm talking about made a phone call from the Coffin Club. Romeo turned into his Elvirish counterpart, who was placing a tip into her bra. Hey, this girl's looking for a bald guy who came to the club the other night, Romeo said. I made a phone call from here. Oh yeah, that sounds familiar, she said. Really? I perked up. I remember because he has to use the phone. No one asks anymore. Everyone has a cell. Did he tell you where he was staying? No, he just said thank you and gave me a 20 for handing him our phone. Was he with anyone? I asked, eager to receive news of Alexander. I think I saw him hanging out with the guy in a Dracula cape. Alexander, I asked excitedly. Was his name Alexander Sterling? Romeo looked at me as if he had recognized the name, but had turned away to wipe down the bar. I didn't have time for introductions, Elvira said. She turned away from me and waited on a guy dressed in leather, waving a 20. Jameson had been here. Possibly Alexander in a cape he had worn on the last night I saw him. I looked around the club for any signs that might help me find him. Maybe Alexander found this place completely bogus. This club just full of outcast goths like me, or were any of them real vampires? Then I remembered the way to spot a true vampire was by not looking at them. Reached into my purse and pulled out Ruby's compact. Every fanged clubster around me reflected back. I had to think of another plan. I replaced the compact and headed for the door. Suddenly, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I turned around. I think I know who you want to see, Romeo said. You do? Follow me. I hung close to my gothic usher, half exhilarated, half terrified. Led me up the spiral staircase to the balcony. A shadowy figure sat on a coffin-shaped couch, a large goblet and a candelabra before him on a round coffee table. The mysterious figure glared up at me. I felt a sudden chill. I could barely whisper, Alexander. The lone figure pulled the candelabra close, illuminating his features. It wasn't Alexander. Instead, sitting in front of me was a cryptic-looking teen. His cadaverous yet attractive face almost hidden beneath dripping white hair with red ends, as if they had been dipped in blood. 3 silver rings pierced his eyebrow, and a pewter skeleton hung from his left ear. The seductive eyes pierced through me, one metallic green, the other ice blue. The whites were filled with spiderweb veins, as if they had been awake for days. His skin was the color of death, his fingernails were painted black like mine, and he wore a tattoo on his arm, which read, Possess. It took all my strength to turn away from his intoxicating gaze, as if I were trying to break an unearthly spell. "You look disappointed," he said in a seductive voice, forcing me to gaze back at him. "You were expecting to meet someone else?" "Yes, I mean, no. Hoping for someone to bond with for eternity? Someone who won't run away from you? Aren't we all?" I snapped back. "Well, I just may be your man." I think Romeo was confused. I said I was looking for someone who made a phone call from here, an older, bald man. "Really? He doesn't seem your type." I was obviously mistaken. One person's mistake is another man's destiny. "I'm Jagger," he said with a piercing glare that made my blood boil. He stood and offered a pale hand. "I'm Raven, but we're looking for someone who can help you fulfill your darkest desires." "No, I was looking for," I began naively. "Yes?" Jagger asked with a cunning smile. Something didn't feel right. Hadn't Romeo already told him who I was looking for? Intuition overcame me. Jagger seemed too eager to hear me name someone. "I've really got to go," I said, clutching my purse close like a shield. "Please join me." He grabbed my arm and pulled me onto the couch. "I believe we have a lot in common." "Maybe next time. I really have to go." "Romeo, get the lady a drink," Jagger commanded. "How about a death sentence? It's the club special." Jagger inched toward me and gently stroked my hair away from my shoulder. "Quite beautiful," he said. I avoided his gaze and clutched my purse in my lap. While he continued to eye me, I sensed that his seductive, good-looking goth was no more my friend than Trevor. "Listen, you have been—" I began, trying to stand up, when Romeo returned with 2 goblets. "Here's to new blood," said Jagger with a laugh. I hesitantly cleaned my goblet with his. He took a long gulp, then waited for me to do the same. For the guy this nefarious, I can only imagine what the drink might have been laced with. "I've got to go," I said, standing up. "Not like you think he is," he said. I paused, almost frozen. "I don't know who you're talking about," I replied and turned to leave. "Find them together," Jagger said, and rose from the couch to block my path. He winked at me and then grinned, revealing sharp vampire fangs that glistened in the candlelight. I stepped back and then realized that in the Coffin Club, everyone had fangs. There was only one way to confirm who or what Jagger was. "Okay, I'll give you my number," I said, turning away from him. I reached into my purse and sheltered the compact from his view. "Just let me find my pen." My fingers shook as I opened Ruby's compact and angled it in his direction. Closed my eyes and hesitated, took a deep breath and opened them, but Jagger had already disappeared. Sorry, I'm back. We are on chapter 6 now. Are you guys enjoying it? I would really love a club called the Coffin. Not many Gothic clubs in the South. Maybe one day. Interesting that you're still here. I'm glad you're still here. Thank you. Oh no, ads are about to start again. But at least we'll have 60 minutes of uninterrupted. Yay! I will wait for the ads to finish before I start. You told me I had to get a book. You're not even gonna read a book. You're not even gonna read it. Why do you even want a book if you're not even gonna read it? At that point, it's just decoration. You know how read? Mm-hmm. I've seen you read book, and it's just the Doug book. And all it says is Doug. Over and 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 over. That's not a book. Not a book. But okay. I will get the book. I will get the book for you if you can stick through the whole series. But you have to stick through the whole series. And this better be a freaking good book, I swear. Maybe. You used to read all the time, but you just don't anymore. It's nice to have an actual book in your hand. Feels so nice. Only 2 seconds, and then we'll be out of ads. 22 seconds. 15 seconds. Welcome back. Anyone who is stuck in ads, welcome back. As I was saying, we are on chapter 6 of Kissing Coffins, Vampire Kisses book. We shall continue. Dracula delivers. I returned to the Village Players Theater just in time for curtain call. I hurried backstage where I was greeted by a worried Lucy in the dressing room. Didn't see you in the audience, Aunt Libby said in a tone that resembled my own. Are you supposed to be concentrating on the show? How could I concentrate when all I saw was your empty seat? She snapped. The woman next to me kept falling asleep on me, I fibbed, so I moved to the back row. But you were wonderful. So you did see it, she responded, relieved. Of course, I gave her a big squeeze. Odd vampires couldn't pull me away. Fiddled through her makeup kit while she greeted a few fans in the hallway. Didn't shake my encounter with Jagger from my head. Had I met a second Dracula, or was Jagger just some tattooed teen thirsting for a date? You have to meet Marshall, Aunt Libby called when she returned to the dressing room. Was peeking beneath the window shade at a lone figure lurking in the darkened alley by the dumpster. Raven, Aunt Libby called. I turned around to face the village player's version of Dracula. A malnourished, overpowdered, middle-aged man with slicked back, gelatinized gray hair, ultra-red lips that resembled Bozo the Clown's, and oversized pressed-on nails. He wore a traditional satin cape. How could an overaged, uncharismatic man play the seductive Dracula? He must have been a good actor. I'd like to introduce you to your biggest fan, Aunt Libby told him. My mind was still on the figure lurking outside. Aunt Libby, we really should, I began. Come to suck your blood, Dracula said in a ghoulish voice, lunging at me. I had to keep from rolling my eyes. There was a time not too long ago when meeting an actor who played Dracula in a professional production would have been the highlight of my existence. I would have become a gushy groupie in his presence and kept his framed autograph on my bookshelf. That was more like meeting a shopping mall Easter bunny. He has told me so much about you, Dracula continued. Nice to meet you, I said. We were just... Come sit down, Aunt Libby suggested, offering a folding chair to the ghoulish lead. Your aunt tells me you're obsessed with vampires, said, draping his cape over the chair and sitting down. Actually, I'm dating one, I wanted to say. Have you been to the Coffin Club? He asked me. She's too young, Aunt Libby reminded him as sat in her dressing room chair and began taking off her makeup. Have you? I asked eagerly. Yes, for research purposes only. See anything unusual? I inquired, like a gothic Nancy Drew. Everything there is unusual, he laughed. Kids walk around wearing medieval cloaks and vampire teeth, with metal spears piercing through their eyebrows and lips, and amulets of blood hanging from their necks. I think I was the only one there above 30, except for one other man. Older than you? Well, stranger if you can imagine. I didn't mean... I know. He stuck out too, but not in the way I did. He could have played Renfield. Creepy man, I blurted out. I mean, was he creepy? Well, I guess he was. Fortunately, he must have been this dime store Dracula and not Alexander, whom Elvira had spotted talking with Jameson. He was quite eccentric, Marshall continued. He asked if I was aware of any abandoned mansions in the area. Dark, secluded, near a cemetery with an attic. Are there any? I love old mansions. I confessed I was starring in Dracula, Marshall said proudly, and I've been to Historical Society to research mansion and local cemeteries. I explained to him that he was better off going to the Historical Society than a real estate agent. Dracula got up to leave. It was a pleasure meeting you. I could still see the figure creeping outside through the partially covered window. When I turned to look at Aunt Libby as she thanked Marshall for his visit, I could see their reflections in the long mirror, as well as the reflection of the window through which I'd been peering. The alley appeared empty, but when I turned back to the window, the figure was still there. Alexander? I quickly headed for the door, pushing past the exiting Dracula. Raven, Aunt Libby scolded. I'm sorry, I began. I think I saw one of your fans outside. I'm going to see if they want to meet you. I rushed outside past a smelly dumpster, some discarded antique chairs and stage scenery. Fire escapes hung from overhead. When I came to the other side of the dressing room, the figure had already gone. Disappointed, I looked around for any signs. The alley was empty of people. A glistening object on the cracked blacktop underneath the window caught my eye. Closer inspection, I saw a pewter skeleton earring lying next to a puddle. I vaguely remembered seeing someone wearing an earring just like this. Alexander wore studs. Then it hit me. It had been Jagger. I checked all around me, making sure the coast was clear. I picked it up, stuck the earring in my purse, and ran back inside the theater. And Libby and I walked to her car with some of the other cast members. Each step I couldn't help but feel as if someone was watching me. I looked up and spotted a small dark object dangling from the telephone wire above the alley. Is that a bat? I asked as she unlocked my door. I can't see anything, she said. Over there, I pointed. Aunt Libby squinted. I'm sure it's a bird, she commented. Birds don't hang upside down, I said. You're creeping me out, she hollered, and swiftly raced around to her side and got into the Beetle. Did it be Alexander? Or were my suspicions right about Jagger? As my aunt started the car, I looked back at the wire, which was now bare. What are you doing? Aunt Libby asked, back at her bachelorette pad. As I turned on all the lights, are you paying for the electric bill this month? Followed behind, turning them off. We have to keep them on, I declared. All of them. Did my dad tell you? I'm afraid of the dark. She glared at me in disbelief. This from a girl who has sleepovers at cemeteries. She had a point, but I couldn't tell her my most secretest of all secrets. The show really spooked me, I said instead. You gave such a realistic performance. I'm afraid I could be bitten at any moment. Thought I was that believable? She asked, surprised. I nodded eagerly. Well, I prefer candlelight, she said. She lit some votives and placed them throughout the living room. Her apartment began to smell of roses and flickered with shadows of Italian masks. Had I really met a second-team vampire? Maybe Jagger had been afraid I'd spotted his unreflected image in my compact. Might have been spying on me in the alleyway or watching me as he hung from a telephone wire. I took a deep breath, realizing I was no better than an overreacting gossip monger like Trevor Mitchell. I should be spending my time planning my continuing search for Alexander instead of pointing fingers to a white-haired goth's mortal existence. Jagger could have dropped his earring on his way home from the coffin club. The lurking figure could have been a clubster weaving back and forth by the dumpster after having a few too many executions. I picked up Aunt Libby's lava lamp phone and called my parents. Hello, Billy Boy answered. It's me. Are Mom and Dad home? They're next door visiting the Jenkins' new baby, he replied. They left you alone? I asked, ribbing him. Give it a rest. Well, don't touch my room or anything in it, I warned, wrapping the telephone cord around my fingers. I've already read one of your journals. You better be kidding. Alexander kissed me, he said in a girlish voice. Then I heard him leaf through pages. You better. Trevor was right. Alexander is a vampire. I froze. How hard Billy Boy gotten hold of one of my journals? Close it right now, I cried. It's not a journal, it's a story I'm writing for English class. Well, you have a lot of spelling mistakes. Right now, nerd boy. Shut it or I'm coming home and melting all your computer games. Calm down, Spaz. I'm in my room, leafing through my NASA book, he confessed. I think I want to go in your messy room. I could be missing for days. I knew that, I said with a sigh of relief. Well, tell Mom I called. I was amazed how accurately Billy Boy had guessed the contents of my journal. Maybe he should perform crystal ball readings at the coffin club. Oh, someone called for you, he remembered. Becky? No, it was a guy. I held my breath. Alexander? He didn't leave his name. When I said you weren't home, he hung up. Did you check the caller ID? I waited an eternity for his response. Out of area, he finally answered. If he calls again, ask who it is, I demanded, and then call me immediately. Aunt Libby was munching on carrots dipped in hummus while sitting on the floor on a purple corduroy pillow. I was too distraught to eat. So tell me about your boyfriend, she asked, as if reading my thoughts. Well, he's a goth like me, I answered, beginning to tell her the part of Alexander's identity that wasn't a secret. And he's delicious. What does he look like? Luscious, long midnight hair, deep dreamy eyes. He's taller than me, about your height. Thin, not malnourished, but not beefy, like he has to be in a gym 24/7. I just can't believe he left, I added, remembering the farewell note. He left you? No, I mean he left for spring break. I scrambled, trying to cover my mistake. To visit his family. Glad you found someone special you can identify with. Must be hard for you growing up in that town. I appreciate that Libby understood what it was like to be different. If she felt more comfortable in Hipsterville, maybe Alexander had found a place where he felt more comfortable too. Aunt Libby, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. Do you believe in vampires? He laughed. I thought you were going to ask about sex. But I was serious. Do you? I once dated a guy who kept a vial around his neck. He claimed it was blood, but it smelled like strawberry Kool-Aid. Did he creep you out? Actually, the ones who claimed they weren't vampires scared me more, she teased. We should get some sleep. We both had a long day, she said, blowing the votives out and putting the carrots away. I'm so glad you're here, she said, giving me a squeeze. Me too. As soon as Aunt Libby went into her bedroom, I tiptoed through the apartment and turned the other lights back on, just to be safe. I climbed onto the futon, pulled the covers over me, and closed my eyes. Suddenly, I felt a shadow over me. I squeezed my eyes shut. I imagined Alexander standing over me with flowers, begging for forgiveness for leaving so abruptly. But then I realized it could be Jagger, about to plunge his fangs into my neck. I opened my eyes slowly. Aunt Libby? I shouted with relief. Still spooked? She asked, standing over me. You can leave the living room light on. We turned all lights off and returned to her bedroom, unaware I was trying to protect her from a tattooed teen of darkness. I pulled the covers back over my head, but still felt as if someone were watching me. I tried to calm myself by thinking of Alexander. I recalled lying in the grass with him in the backyard of the mansion staring at the stars, our fingers intertwined. I heard a scratching sound coming from the kitchen. I was probably the only girl in the world who hears a scratching sound and hopes it's a mouse. I imagined myself at the mansion, the dark sky brightened by luminous clouds above us, the smell of Drekard cologne in the air, and Alexander kissing me. When Alexander spoke into my ear, all I heard was a scratching sound. I decided to confront it and walk toward the kitchen in my black socks. The white mouse running across my feet was the least of my issues. I switched on the kitchen light, and the sound seemed to be coming from outside. I peeled back the curtain above the sink, expecting to see Jagger's ghost white face staring back. It was only a tree branch swaying against the window in the wind. Just to be safe, I opened my Tupperware container and placed a clove of garlic on the windowsill from above the futon. Now we're on chapter 7. Chapter 7. That's being so quiet. Guessing everybody is like using me as a sleep. That's fair. Hopefully my voice is soothing enough, I guess. Right. We are on chapter 7 of Kissing Coffins, Vampire Kisses, Book 2. I'm gonna take a sip real quick. The Historical Society. The next morning, I was jarred awake by the music of the doors. The bright sun beaming in through the open windows made my head pound. I was exhausted from the bus ride to Hipsterville, searching for Alexander and my nocturnal meeting with the inhabitants of the Coffin Club. As I looked outside, the mortal world seemed the same. Jeeps parallel parked, hipstervillians pushed chic strollers, birds hung on telephone wires. But the morning sun shed new light on last night's events. Maybe my Coffin Club experience was just a dream, and Jagger just a concoction of my nightmare imagination. I rose from the futon with a gentle laugh, thinking about my over-imaginative nocturnal dreams. I spotted a charm on Aunt Libby's wooden footlocker next to my bracelets. Jagger's skeleton earring. It hadn't been a dream. I held it in my hand. The bony charm stared at me. If Jagger was a vampire, I wonder what frights it had observed. Dangling from his ear. Was it witness to late-night bites on unsuspecting girls? Had the tiny pewter bones seen Alexander? I reminded myself that I was doing to Jagger what Trevor had done to Alexander. Everett started rumors that the Starlings were vampires, not because he knew their true identity, but because he wanted to make them a town scandal. Now I was making judgments and jumping to my own conclusions about Jagger without having any facts. I had to spend my energy searching for what I had come to Hipsterville for. Real vampire instead of a wannabe. I remembered my conversation with the village Dracula. I had to get to the Historical Society as soon as it opened. Found Aunt Libby in the kitchen cooking eggs. "Good morning, honey," she said. "Did you sleep well?" "Like a baby." "I'm surprised you did," she said, cutting me off. "Something in the living room smells funny," she said, turning off the stove and placing the skillet on another burner. "My mom packed me some goodies for the bus ride," I said, following her in the living room. "Maybe something spoiled." "It seems like it's coming from over here," she said, pointing toward the window from above the futon. She quickly pulled back a broken window shade before I could stop her. "I found it on the floor last night when I went to the bathroom. I thought it was a seashell." I paused, waiting for her response. She looked at me skeptically. "Well, after watching your show last night, I just couldn't sleep," I added. "I thought you liked vampires." "I do, but not at my window." "You remind me of your father when he was growing up. Loved scary movies, but must have slept with the light on until college," she said. "And then I guess it's in my genes," I said, retrieving the garlic from the windowsill and sticking it back in my Tupperware container. "I could throw that away for you," she offered, extending her hand. "I want to keep it," as I put the container in my purse, "until college." Aunt Libby laughed, and I followed her into the kitchen. "I have a list of things we can do," she said, as we sat down to breakfast. "We can start by going to the art museum. There's an exhibition on Edward Gorey I think you might enjoy. We can go to the Nifty Fifties diner for lunch. They make a great bacon cheeseburger. Of course, I've never had it, but that's what I hear. After that, we can go antiquing in the neighborhood. Then I have my show, but you can hang backstage. I'm afraid it might be too scary for you to see again," she teased. "Sound cool?" "I'd like to check out the Historical Society," I requested. "While I talk about mansions last night with Marshall," she guessed. "I think I'll do a report on one for a history class. During spring break?" "I figured you'd rather have a picnic in the cemetery," she said, putting down her coffee. "Great idea. Let's do that afterward." "I was joking," she responded. By the time Aunt Libby got ready, I showered and dressed. The morning hours were dwindling. Libby was everything my dad wasn't. While he was an uptight A personality, she was a laid-back type Z. It was 15 minutes early to a movie. She was lucky to make it before the credits rolled. I couldn't convince Aunt Libby to pack a basket of tortilla-wrapped tofu sandwiches and sit by empty graves. I was able to trade an art museum for the Historical Society. I grabbed my Olivia Outcast journal from my suitcase and put it in my backpack. Finally headed out the door. Dolesville Historical Society was in an unhaunted, late 19th century church. I visited it only once on a school field trip and spent most of the time exploring 3 tombstones in the cemetery until a teacher discovered my whereabouts and threatened to call my parents. Hipsterville's Historical Society proved to be more interesting, located in 2 Pullman railway cars at the old train station. Inside, I rummaged through pictures of Victorian houses, original menus from Joe's Eats, and letters from early residents. From the second car emerged a woman wearing a lime green pantsuit, matching sandals, and a red-haired "that girl do." "Can I help you?" she asked. "My niece is visiting and would like to do a report on our historical mansions," Aunt Libby said, staring at black and white photos of streetcars that hung next to the emergency brake. "Well, you came to the right place," she said, and pulled a book from a shelf. "I'm interested in an abandoned estate near a cemetery." Hello! Hello! Hi, everybody. Welcome in. Hello. Hi, Danny. Thank you for following. Welcome to the den. Hello, hello. Hi. Well, perfect that my sister the vampire is here for my reading of Vampire Kisses book 2. We're already in the vampire-y mood. Hello, hello, welcome in. Thank you for following. Welcome to the den. Hello, hello. Hello. Oh no. Oh no. You're stealing my fridge. Oh no. I don't even know what's in my fridge, so might get poisoned for all I know. Oh, it'll put you right to sleep. That's good. That's good. I'm sure you've had a long, long stream, so hopefully I can help you sleep. Hopefully this will help you sleep. Yeah, we're on the second book. We're on the second book of Vampire Kisses series. And the second book is called Kissing Coffins. And to summarize the book for all you new readers. Oh, I haven't done my introduction. Hi, I'm Vixie Nocturne. I am Danny Fangs's sister. Sister from another Mr. and Mother. We don't have the same Reg Mama or the same Artist Mama, but we are basically the same in spirit and the same in colors. Oh, thank you for following me. Welcome to the den. He is the vampire. I am the fox. I am a demon fox from another realm. I am magical and chaotic. I am very much chaos gremlin on normal days. But today we are ASMR reading books. Reading one of my favorite book series, Vampire Kisses, that I've loved since middle school. So hopefully you guys like it too. Oh, thank you for the follower goal. Thank you, thank you. 670? That's crazy. Thank you. We're so close to 700. That's amazing. Maybe we'll reach 1K before the end of the year. Sick. But to summarize the book, from the first book, we are goth girl Raven Madison, met her Alexander Sterling, found out he was a vampire. She lives in what she calls Dolesville, which is basically a conservative small town. And in the second book, we are trying to find Alexander because at the end of the first book, he disappeared into the night after a party. So we're trying to figure out why he disappeared and didn't say anything besides leaving us a note that says, "Because I love you." So now we are on the hunt. We're trying to find out where he went. And we are at our Aunt Libby's house during spring break because it's the only clue we have is that he is in the town of Hipsterville, where Aunt Libby lives. And the Coffin Club is one of the main clues. We just met someone very suspicious named Jagger. We don't know anything about him, but we're very suspicious of him. That is where we're at right now. So sit back, relax, get cozy. If you have to raid and run, that's totally fine with me. If not, sit back and relax. Make sure you're hydrated. Make sure you have some snacks. Make sure you get cozy and comfortable. And I will continue reading. Thank you for being here. We are on chapter 7. Can I help you? She asked. My niece is visiting and I would like to do a report on our historical mansions, Aunt Libby said, peering at black and white photos of streetcars that hung next to the emergency brake. Well, you came to the right place, she said, and pulled a book from a shelf. I'm interested in an abandoned estate near a cemetery. The woman looked at me as if I were a ghost. Strange. Man was in here the other day asking about the very same thing. Really? I asked, surprised. Was it Marshall Kenner? Aunt Libby inquired. He's starring in Dracula. No, Marshall was in earlier in the month. This was a gentleman who was new to town. My ears perked up. Pulled out several more books and leafed through them as Aunt Libby explored the museum. Here's the Lanford Mansion, the woman pointed out. It's in the far north part of town, and the Kinsley estate toward the east. I studied all the pictures, imagining which one Jameson would have selected. Nothing remotely resembled the mansion on Benson Hill. Which one was the man interested in? I whispered. She looked at me strangely. You should do your report on what you like. I looked again at all the mansions, each one statelier than the last. I wrote down their names and addresses on the back of the Historical Society's brochure. I realized it would take me several spring breaks to visit them all. As I was ready to close the book, I noticed the edge of a bookmark peeking out toward the back. When I turned to the noted page, I lost my breath. A black and white photo of a gloomy 19th century grand estate stared back at me. Wrought iron gates surrounded the towering house, and the top of the mansion was a tiny attic window. I envisioned ghosts hiding behind the curtains to shy photographed. Underneath, the picture read, Coswell Manor House. What's this? I asked the woman who was organizing the bookshelf. She glanced at the picture. I didn't think to mention that one, because it's on the outskirts of town. It's been abandoned for years. Perfect, I said. Weird. That's what the gentleman said, too. The woman jotted down an address and handed it to me. It's on Lennox Hill at the far end of the road. I dropped a donation in the friendly funds jar as we left the museum. That was nice of you, my aunt said, as we walked through the parking lot to the Nifty 50s diner. I'd have given her my college fund if I could have. Now we're on chapter 8. You rated into like the last 2 pages of chapter 7. It's funny. But yes, thank you for being here, all of you Danny readers. Hello, thank you. And welcome back in, Rago. Welcome back in, Rago. We are on chapter 8 of Kissing Coffins. I hope you are enjoying. I hope you are cozy. Hope you got your snacks, got your blankies. Let us continue. We are on chapter 8, Kissing Coffins. In a manner of speaking. While Aunt Libby gathered her belongings for the theater and the sun made its final descent, I sat cross-legged on her futon and made notes in my journal. My investigation was almost complete. In only a few hours, I would be reunited with Alexander. Once he understood I loved him no matter who or what he was, we could go back to Dolesville and we'd be able to be together. Then I wondered what exactly that would mean. Would he want me to be like him in every way I could? And if faced with a choice, would I really want to choose the lifestyle I'd always dreamed of? Quiet my mind, I made more notes. Positives of being a vampire. Save on electric bills was number 1. Number 2, could always sleep in late. Very late. Number 3, wouldn't have to worry about keeping a low-carb diet. Are you sure you want to stay alone? Aunt Libby asked, holding her makeup bag. I am 16. Your parents let you stay by yourself? I could have been babysitting at 12 if anyone in Dolesville would have hired me. Well, there's plenty of food in the fridge, she offered, heading for the door. I'll call it intermission to check in. Aunt Libby may have been laid back when it came to her own lifestyle, but when I was under her roof, she was just like my dad. I guess she would have been like my father and left her hippie days behind if she had kids too. I quickly changed into my hot Gothics fashion merch, black and white striped tights and a torn black mini dress revealing a blood red chemise. I applied my standard black lipstick and dark eyeshadow. I barely had enough time to put a red rose body tattoo on my neck. Checked to make sure the container of garlic was tightly sealed. As I didn't want to expose Alexander to the 2-inch weapon I used to ward off any lurking vampires. I must have brushed my hair and rearranged my red extensions a million times before I rushed out the door and waited at the bus stop for number 7. On every passing number, 11 or 16, I paced the bus stop. I was considering returning to my aunt's apartment and calling a cab when I saw the number 7 turn onto the street and slowly lumber toward me. Anxiously, I boarded the crowded bus, a mixture of granola heads and urban teas, slipped my cash into the change receptacle, and grabbed the slippery aluminum pole. I held onto the pole for dear life, trying to keep my balance and avoid bumping onto the other passengers as the bus jolted with every acceleration. As soon as the number 7 lurched forward and reached the speed limit, it began to slow down again, stopping at every bus stop in town. I checked my watch. It would have been quicker if I'd walked. After letting off a few dozen passengers and picking up a few more, the bus driver turned the corner and passed my destination, Lennox Hill Road. I ran toward the front of the bus. You passed Lennox Hill Road, I called in a panic as the bus driver kept accelerating. There is no bus stop there, he said to me, looking in the rearview mirror. That's my destination, I argued. I only stop at bus stops, he recited, continuing to drive. If it's $1.50 to get on the bus, how much is it to get off? I heard a few of the passengers laugh behind me. Pull the cord, the woman said, pointing to a white wire that ran above the bus windows. I reached across her and pulled the wire hard. A few seconds later, the bus driver slowed down and pulled over. See that? He asked, pointing to a square sign on a pole with the number 7 next to the curb. That's a bus stop. I gave him a dirty look and jumped off the bus, dodging an elderly couple trying to board. I ran down the hill, and the bus had just driven off up until I reached Lenox Hill Road. I turned the corner and walked past gigantic pristine estates with lush green lawns and purple and yellow flowers until I found an unkempt, overgrown, weed-filled lawn. A decaying house sat on it at the end of a cold and ominous cul-de-sac. It looked as if a storm cloud were hovering over it. I had finally arrived at a stately Gothic manor house. Gargoyles sat on top of the jagged wrought iron gates. Untamed bushes lined the front of the manor. Dead grass crunched beneath my boots. Broken bird bath sat in the center of the lawn. Moss and ivy grew on the roof like a Gothic Shia pit. I skipped along a fractured rock path which led to an arched wooden front door. I grabbed on the dragon-shaped knocker and it came off the door and fell into my hand. Embarrassed, I quickly hid the knocker underneath a bush. I rapped the door again. I wondered if Alexander was standing on the other side, ready to greet me with a colossal kiss. But there was no answer. I banged my fist against the door until my hand began to throb. I turned the rusty handle and tried to push against the wooden entrance, but it was locked. I snuck behind the dead bushes and alongside the front of the manor. The windows were boarded up, but I spotted a slender crack. Ceilings in the manor house were so high, I was surprised that there were no clouds wafting through the rafters. Plenty of room for a ghost to fly around in without being noticed. From what I could see, the walls in the living room were as bare as the room itself. Gonna hold for ads. We're gonna hold for ads. Everybody are in ads. Take your bathroom break. Yeah, get your more water. More hydration. I'm going to get some more hydration. Only have 2 minutes of ads. What do you mean, what's the stream's format? I am confused by this question. Oh, I have vertical stream on. You can fix that in Twitch mobile if you want to. Go back to normal. Make it go back to normal. Either do vertical mode or you can do the normal mode. I have both. Whatever works for you. Whatever works for you. Happy you are here. For being here. Thank you for following. Welcome to the den. Thank you, thank you. You're just waiting for 1 more minute for the ads to be done, for community to come back. And we will finish this chapter. Waiting on the ads. Yeah. "40 seconds left. Get under your little blinkies. Ooh, 5-star. Wow. Got a 5-star. That's great. We're happy for you. First time chatter gets a 5-star. Oh, it's a little daily routine gotcha. Just your little daily check-in. Honestly, it just lets me know you're here. The community really likes it because it also, as you can tell from the chat, it will add each time that you daily check in. It'll say you now drank 2 boba teas, 3 boba teas. It'll just continuously add each time you check in. It's really good feature. Number go up. Everybody like the number go up. We shall continue now that we are out of ads. Frustrated, I walked around to the side of the manor house and discovered a butler's entrance. Twisted the iron knob on the skinny oak door, but that too was bolted shut. My heart pulsing hard, I ran to the back of the house. A few broken steps led down to a lone, dingy window. It wasn't boarded up, so I eagerly pressed my face to the glass. Nothing unusual. I saw a few cardboard boxes, a dusty tool rack, and an old sewing machine. I tried to open the window, but it was stuck. Ran back up the broken steps and stood on the lawn. "Hello?" I called. "Jameson? Alexander?" But my words were answered only by the barking of a neighbor's dog. Stared up at a single attic window. The tree starved of leaves leaned toward the manor house, one of its branches reaching out just below the window. The huge oak must have been centuries old. Its trunk was as wide as a house. Touched the ground like a spider's leg. I was used to climbing, whether it was over the mansion's wrought iron gate or up an apple's tree in Becky's backyard. But scaling this tree seemed like ascending Mount Everest in the dark. Clad in combat boots and a mini dress, I stuck my heel into the lowest branch and pulled myself up. I continued to climb at a steady rate, slowing down only to catch my breath, or when I needed to feel above me for a limb hiding away from the moonlight. Weary but determined, I scooted along a heavy branch stretching underneath the attic window. A dark curtain hid most of the room from view, but I managed to peek inside. I could make out an empty box and a wooden chair. Then I saw the most amazing sight staring back at me. Resting in the corner was the portrait Alexander had painted of me dressed for the snowball. A pumpkin basket hung over one arm. A 2-dimensional raven grinned, flashing fake vampire teeth. "Alexander," I called. I tried to tap against the window, but my fingers were just out of reach. "Alexander," I called again. I could hear the dogs barking, getting louder. "Alexander, Jameson," I yelled with all my might. Just then, the next-door neighbor opened his back door and stepped onto his deck. He was built like a professional wrestler. "Hey, you kids, back again?" he called over. "What's going on, Hal?" a petite woman asked, following him out of the house. "I told you kids are playing in that house next door," he said to her. "I'm calling the police," he yelled, and pulled out a cell phone from his back pocket. I hurried down the tree, wanting to avoid being placed in a full Nelson, or worse, handcuffs. Plus, I didn't want law enforcement to arrest Alexander and Jameson, or force them to find another home, and this time it might be Romania. When I reached the bottom branch, I saw out of the corner of my eye a rustling of the dark curtain in the attic window. I quickly slipped back to get a better view, but the curtain was still. Suddenly, a chocolate-colored Doberman pinscher sprinted out of the neighbor's house down the deck stairs and scratched against the brown picket fence that ran parallel to the manor house. Afraid the dog would wriggle his way through the skinny spaces between the boards and devour me like kibbles and bits, I took off around the other side of the manor and tore down the road to the bus stop. I boarded the westbound number 7, taking a seat in the back behind a college-age couple. I was excited to find that Alexander was indeed in Hipsterville. I imagined that he was painting portraits in a spooky cemetery, searching a haunted mansion for furniture to decorate his attic room, or maybe he was out for a night flight. I was still confused why Alexander had come to Hipsterville. It was a small town with eerie abandoned manors and with enough goths and artists to be hidden among. What else did it offer a lone vampire? The couple seated in front of me began making out, oblivious to the other staring passengers. I saw their reflection in the bus window. I wonder if they knew how lucky they were. Two humans could share their nights and days together, take pictures, sit in the sun. Then I realized those were just small sacrifices I'd make to be with Alexander again. The bus approached the Village Players Theater. I disembarked with several other passengers. I walked alone down the alley toward the back entrance of the theater. Conjuring excuses, I could tell Aunt Libby and my parents so I could stake out the manor house for the next few nights until I made contact with Alexander. I saw a figure lurking behind the dumpster. "I hope to find you here," a deep voice said, stepping out to block my way. I froze. It was Jagger. I held my purse close. Inside was my mace and, possibly more important, my container of garlic. "I have information that may be of interest to you." "Information?" I asked skeptically. "About Sterling," he said with a knowing glance. "Isn't that who you were looking for?" Shocked, I inched back. I knew where Alexander was staying. I didn't know where he was. The promise of any new leads on Alexander's whereabouts made my heart pulse in overtime. Plus, my curiosity about Jagger's identity still lingered. I had to know how he knew Alexander. "I can help you. I've known him for an eternity," he said with a grin. I glanced back at the Village Players Theater. If I went back inside, I was guaranteed to have a safe night with the real, unreal vampires. Or I could just wait for Alexander outside the manor house, unless he and Jameson spotted me and left for another town. Then I was guaranteed to never see my gothic mate again. "You better tell me everything you know," I said, clutching my purse to my side. "Otherwise, you're free to go whenever you like," he reassured me. I stood still as Jagger began walking down the alley. Curiosity eating away at me, I decided to catch up to him. Followed Jagger down the street and toward a back entrance to the Coffin Club. He led me into the warehouse and down a darkened hallway to an empty freight elevator. The rickety door shrieked out in pain when he shut it. Instead of pushing the button for the Coffin Club, he pressed B button. The elevator slowly lowered to the basement, screeching as if it were a coffin descending into hell. I thought we were going to the Coffin Club. The elevator stopped. Jagger opened the door and held it for me as I stepped into the corridor. He followed behind me so closely I could feel his warm breath on the back of my neck. We walked down the narrow hallway, the walls adorned with graffiti and the cement floor cluttered with discarded chairs and boxes. The dance floor music pulsed above. When we reached what looked like a wide storage room door, I could hear the elevator slowly grind its way back up to a mortal level. Jagger lifted the metal gray door above our heads to reveal a windowless apartment. Stepped inside. "Welcome to my dungeon," he said. Dozens of medieval candelabras filled the spacious apartment. Then I saw it in the far corner. Lay an open coffin adorned with gothic band stickers like a mortal teen skateboard. Dirt encircled the coffin like a walled city. My eyes grew wide. "So you are," I began, but could barely speak. "Oh, the coffin," he said. "Cool, huh? I got it at a vintage store. And the dirt? Got it in a vampire mag. Creepy, huh?" I didn't know what to think. Even Alexander slept on a mattress. "Really comfortable. Want to give it a try?" he asked with sexy eyes. "I'm not tired." "You don't have to be." Jagger confused me. I couldn't figure out if he was a Vulpine vampire or just a goth-obsessed teen like me. I looked around for any unusual clues. Everything was unusual. Maps were spread out on the floor. The cement walls were decorated with gravestone etchings. Next to the radiator, radiator, an aquarium without water, was filled with rocks. His kitchen counter and sink looked as if they had remained untouched. Metal cabinets were missing their doors, and I was afraid to think I was in the refrigerator, or rather, who? You are the first girl I ever brought down here, Jagger confessed. I'm surprised. You must meet a lot of girls at the Coffin Club. Actually, I'm new to town, just like you, visiting. Hairs on the back of my neck rose. How do you know I'm visiting? It doesn't take a psychic to figure it out. Someone as goth as you would be a regular at the club. Romeo had never seen you before. I guess you're right. Can I get you anything to drink? No, thank you, I replied. I want to know. Jagger walked over to the aquarium. He placed his hand inside and pulled out a huge tarantula. I just bought him. Would you like to pet him? He asked, stroking the potentially poisonous spider as if it were a sleeping cat. Normally I would have loved to pet a tarantula, but I wasn't sure of Jagger's motive. Where's your big screen TV? I asked, noticing the lack of televisions or computers. I find them offensive. So you don't watch movies? You never even seen the original Dracula? I hinted. Nosferatu? Kissing coffins? Someone as goth as you would seem to have the lines memorized. I'd rather experience life than be a voyeur. I returned the spider to the aquarium. I dug my hand into my purse. You left this behind, I said, and revealed the skeleton earring in my hand. He smiled brightly as if I were reuniting him with a long-lost friend. As he took the charm from my hand, his fingers lingered, gently touching my palm, sending chills through my veins. It took some strength, but I withdrew. Now that this has been in your possession, it is even more special to me, he said, placing it back in his ear. Can I give you a reward? He asked. You can tell me about Alexander. Shall I tell you, or should I just show you? He asked, stepping toward me. Tell me, I said, defiant. Is he a friend of yours? Maybe, yes, he said with an inviting smile. Maybe, no, he said with a wicked grin. Forget it, I'm out of here. I know him from Romania, he said quickly. Have you seen him in America? He shook his head, his white hair flopping over his blue and green eyes. Do you know where he is? I asked. What if I do? How much is it worth? He asked, licking his lips. Don't know, do you? I challenged. I backed away from him, stepping on a map. But you know quite a lot, he argued. I pulled my purse close. You knew enough about my Romanian friend to come to the Coffin Club and ask for him, he said, approaching me again. I don't know anything. And why do you want to find him? He whispered, softly in my ear as he gently stroked my hair off my shoulder. I must have been mistaken, I said, looking away from his gaze, wanting to run, not being able to move. Really, he whispered. He made you feel like his breath was yours, he said, circling me, his words landing softly on the back of my neck. I don't know what you're talking about, I lied, my heart pounding in my chest. That your flesh and his are one, he said, as his lips gently caressed the nape of my neck. I could barely speak, my heart racing, the map crinkling underneath my boot. He stepped close in front of me, his eyes piercing through my own, and gently touched my onyx necklace. He leaned into me and kissed the top of my chest. He whispered, that you're just a kiss away from being bonded with him for eternity. I could barely breathe. My heart raced as he held me. Get off, I cried, wedging my arms between us and pushing him away. The map tore underneath my boot. Jagger tried to pierce me with his gaze, but I stared down at my feet. It was a map of Hipsterville. The cemeteries were highlighted in yellow, with several crossed out in black marker. Then I noticed, lying a few feet away from the floor, the other maps, neighboring towns of Hipsterville and Dullsville. Cemeteries were highlighted and crossed out in black. I glanced up at Jagger as he tried to lock his blue and green eyes with mine. He gently grabbed my hand like he'd done in the Coffin Club. We could find him together, I recalled him saying. Then I remembered the note I found in Alexander's room. He is on his way. I backed away from Jagger and reached into my purse. It was worth a shot. My fingers shook as I tried to pry open the container of garlic. The container suction was like super glue. I struggled with the lid when Jagger stepped toward me. I raced out the door and ran down the hallway. I pressed the elevator button and glanced back. Jagger stepped through his doorway and began running down the hall after me. I could hear the screeching elevator above me, but it was nowhere to be found. I looked up the number, lit 3, lit 2, lit G. Hurry, hurry, I mumbled, pressing the button repeatedly. I could hear Jagger coming closer. Suddenly the B lit up, and the elevator stopped in front of me. I pulled the rickety door to one side and jumped in. I used all my strength to pull the accordion door shut just as an angry Jagger stepped in front of the elevator. I darted back away from the door as his gaze caught me. He reached out for the door, realizing I hadn't yet pushed a button. I quickly pressed my finger against the G button. As the elevator began to lift, I leaned against the wall away from him. I hope you find him, I heard Jagger call. Before I do. What are you doing here? Aunt Libby asked when she found me peeking underneath the shades in her dressing room after curtain call. I called you at intermission, but you didn't pick up. I must have been in the shower, I rambled. But I wanted to see you. You did? That's so cute, she said, wiping off her makeup. I'm having such a fabulous time, but I have something to tell you. Yes? I have to go back home tomorrow. So soon? She asked, putting down her makeup sponge. I know, I whined. I don't want to leave, but I still have tons of homework to do. When I was in school, spring break was just that, a break. Now I'll need to leave early before sunset. Still afraid of the vampires, she teased. The truth was, I wasn't sure. I didn't know who or what Jagger was. The only thing I was sure of was that he was following Alexander. It was just moments ago that I had barely escaped Jagger's lair. If I attempted to find out Jagger's reason for his search, I might be putting myself and, more importantly, Alexander in danger. Now that Jagger was following me outside the theater yesterday and waiting for me in the alley tonight, I knew if I returned to the manor house or anywhere I thought I might find Alexander, I would lead Jagger right to him. Although it broke my heart, I had no choice. I would have to leave Hipsterville. Gonna leave it there for today. And then pick it up later on for next. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys get some good sleep. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm gonna raid ASMR channel. You guys have or ASMR, I guess, to listen to. I'm gonna raid into my wifey. It's been a while. You guys enjoy for being here. I will see you guys again tomorrow.